Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Yes, friends. Oh, yeah. You know what that sound means? It's time for Tiger Claw Radio. Yes. All right, so this Saturday, this is being recorded on Friday night, and this Saturday is the release date for Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 8, which is going to be awesome. So by the time you're listening to this on Monday morning, it's already out. But for now, we're going to do a quick review of Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 7. That's last year's edition. Coming up, we got some stuff about some awesome video games, some amateur electronics, some synth stuff. It's going to be a good one. So stick with us. We're going to kick things off with a track from Graz, who actually attended MagFest last year. I didn't get to meet him, but I did see him out walking around at the chip space. Stick with us. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. All right, boys and girls, this is one of those weeks. There's no time to waste. We're going right to the van. Now, I only did 2 van casts this past week. One was, I think, Tuesday, and the other was this morning. So let's go back to Tuesday. Set the Wayback Machine back for however many days ago that was, and I'll see you there. Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. It's the van cast. It's a nice, comfortable 70 degrees outside right now. And I'm off to work. Oh, boy. Come on. What's going on now? There we go. Feels good, man. Yeah, Tuesday morning. So yesterday I was able to work from home, which was always so nice. Nice to not have to do this whole commuting thing for a day. And now that I'm off to work, I'm treated to a nice 70 degree morning. It feels really good outside right now, which is just great. I got up early today and I was able to sit down at my desk and play some more of the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle, which I'm bringing to a close. I was able to finish, what is it called now? King of Dragons? Yeah, King of Dragons. It's funny because I played it all the way to the end, and I got to the part where the ending, and then like in the middle of the ending, I was like, all right, save state, let's go to the next game. I'll come back and watch the ending later. So now I'm working on Knights of the Round, which is the very last game on the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. I've played every other game from start to finish. I gotta say, there's some good games in there. There's some weird ones, but there are some very good ones as well. It's been a good time. Last night I spent some time working on the old eBay shop. I have a bin of stuff that I was selling off. Like the last time I was focusing on eBay, I had a bin of merchandise that I was listing. And then when I let things go and kind of shut down, that stuff's kind of been sitting in that box ever since. So I dusted it off last night. And I went through it, and there's some fun items in there. I got a couple of Tiger Electronic games, and I have this like Mattel handheld baseball game. So like sometime in the early 2000s, Mattel made these handheld games that are like reminiscent of the 70s. The 70s handheld games, late 70s, where they had like red LED light bulbs in them. Not LED, but these red fixed light bulbs in them, and that was their display. There was no liquid crystal, none of that stuff. It's just fixed red bulbs. Very weird, very 70s. But I have one of those, a baseball game, which seemed pretty cool. It seemed like a neat thing, but that's gonna get sold off or listed anyway. We'll see if anybody actually bites on it. But it's been pretty cool to actually get the old shop back online. All right, boys and girls, hang on a second. I'm gonna run to the grocery store real quick. All right, Becky, what was I talking about? Right, setting up the old eBay shop. So ultimately, what I'm trying to do is let's see, saving up for synthesizer gear. But it's not just a matter of money, because I have a job. All I really need is patience to get the money. It's space, a combination of money and space. So it's cool to get rid of some of this stuff that's been hanging around for years, even if only for a few bucks. So that's good. We got a big mountain of stuff at the house that's getting ready to go off to the thrift store and get donated. So that'll free up quite a lot of space, actually, which is great. I took the time to unhook a few video game systems, which kind of sucks, to see some old consoles go in bags in the closet. Like I took out my Sega Genesis, my Sega Model 3 to be specific, because I got 3 Sega Genesis all hooked up around the house. So I was like, all right, one of these can go. Come on now. And that, I think, was the big one, and a couple other things. But I can see, like, the cables, the big spaghetti monster of cables that hangs off the TV is not nearly as bad now. So the old office is getting a little bit more cleaned up, which is great. I dig it. More space for gaming. Yeah. The Wii is upstairs now, so I have full access to the Wii in my office. That had been like the family game console for years. So I have that set up, and I'm like sitting down to play my first couple of like Wii games without the kids pulling on me in years and years and years. When my son was very little, before my daughter was born, I used to get the latest episode of Go Nintendo, which is like a 2-hour Nintendo-oriented podcast, and I would sit down and listen to Go Nintendo on my earphones while I would play Smash Brothers Brawl. And that was my evening in a lot of cases. Like once a week I would do that, or however often I could get a hold of a new Go Nintendo. That was a long time ago. I think that's the last time I really remember digging into the Wii hard on my own, without the kids. Got a couple of games just before, back when the Wii Virtual Console was getting ready to shut down. And among them, I picked up the original Phantasy Star, and I got pretty far in Phantasy Star. And then I reached a point where I just couldn't play it anymore because the kids were just making it too difficult. I would play for 5 minutes, and they'd be like, "Daddy, I want to play." All right, that's fine. You can play. And then I can't remember where I am in the save file anymore. Like, I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing or what. So I got to start over again. And that's what happens to me with RPGs. So I can't stay the course long enough to make it through an RPG. So it happened with Phantasy Star. Good game though. I enjoyed it while I was playing it. This was a raw ROM file. Like, I know that there's a version that people are playing on, I guess, the Switch, where it has some auto mapping features added to the game. No, we don't have that here. You want a map, you're going to draw one or you're going to print one. And I managed to get very far in it. Good game. Alright, where am I at right now? We're 7.5 minutes in. I think with that, I'm going to call it a morning. I think I'm going to go ahead and send you guys back to the studio while I head in and do my day of work. Because I'm thinking back about awesome video game stuff that's happened. Beating King of the Dragons this morning is, I think, as good as it's going to get. So when I get home tonight, I'll crack open the collection and dig into something else, and we'll meet back up then. Alright, boys and girls. Back in the studio. Tiger Claw Radio. Yes. Alright, we're going back to Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 7. So, the thing about Chiptunes Equals Win is it seems to be more synth and less chip. It's still chiptune, but there's more play at what chiptune means than, say, Battle of the Bits. So that's one of the reasons why I like this next track from Galgox that he put out last year. This is really a chiptune. This is the core of the video game nostalgia that chiptune, dance music kind of evokes. And this is a Material Fantasy from Galgox. It's a little bit long. It's 5 minutes, but it's a heck of a track. Get Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 7 if you don't have it already. And when we come back, more Tiger Claw Radio. Oh yeah. Welcome back to the studio, everybody. Alright, so we are, 19 minutes and 45 seconds in. This is where I like to just take a minute aside to thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. So these guys give their resources to make sure every week we can come back with some new stuff. And to them, I can offer early access to the podcast. As soon as it gets done, which is going to be Friday night this week, it goes up for the sponsors. And I also read their names off in sort of a hall of distinguished gentlemen here on the show. And they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Dorabka, and Konstantin Kelman. Thank you guys so much. You're making a huge, huge difference. And with that, let's go back to the van. This is Friday morning's Vancast from this morning on Tiger Claw Radio. Good morning, everybody. It's 6:19 on Friday morning. It's time for the Vancast. It's a nice cool morning, cool for August anyway, and I'm ready to head off to work. Oh yeah. Been watching that series The Boys over on Amazon, which has been pretty good. I've been enjoying that a lot more than I thought I would. I read much of The Boys comic series, several years back. And when I read the comic, I liked it at first, but there were a couple of major complaints. One was that my biggest complaint was that it seemed like a lot of disjointed, depressing imagery. Not that it was depressing, but it didn't chain together to make a coherent arc. It just seemed like an odyssey of filler issues that I had a hard time following. So in the end, there wasn't much reason to keep reading. So that's one of the things I think this series does very well, is it has a coherent story, and because being what it was, I think that's a comic book series that lends itself a little bit better to being compressed, right? Taking like 5 issues and compressing it into a single episode. I think it lends itself well to that. Usually this kind of thing you'd think would be like a complaint, like in the Watchmen movie. But no, I've enjoyed it. I mean, there's a few minor complaints, like the acting gets a little hokey in a few areas. But yeah, it's a cool show. It's a cool show. I like that the superheroes are the bad guys, because I've just had enough of these superhero movies. I've just absolutely had enough. So that's The Boys. I haven't finished it yet. I watched episode 5 last night, so I'm pretty close to finishing it. I know there's not much. I haven't been binge watching. We're gonna watch 1 episode, and that's what we get. And then when it's over, I'm not gonna watch any more until tomorrow. That way, I've been able to stretch it out a little bit, and have something to look forward to, which has been great. I've been enjoying having a show to watch again, because it's been a while since I watched all the way through a series. Did some soldering last night, which is great. I'm learning my point soldering. I spent $10 and I got a point solder kit with a soldering iron, and I spent another $6 and I got like a little metal detector module. Think about a PCB, a nice green PCB, probably the size of a credit card, and then it has a few components that you solder directly onto it to make it work, and then it has a little battery case that you connect, and then there you go. That's all it is. It was actually listed under Amazon as soldering practice metal detector module. And then in the end, when it's all put together, you got a little green plate, and when you put a metal item on the plate, a buzzer goes off. So I've been messing with that just to get started with point soldering. And it's going well. It's going very well. This project has only through holes, right? So there's two types of point soldering. There's through holes where you take a peg and you put it through a hole, and then you fill the hole with solder, and then you're done. And then there's surface mount, which I haven't done, where there's a pad and you get your soldering iron and you warm up the pad, and then you dab solder on the pad, and then the component just sticks to it without having to go through. I don't know. Haven't quite figured out surface mount yet. When I look on the internet, like in videos of other people getting started, surface mount seems to be this general, like, oh, it's advanced point soldering. It's the harder one. I don't think it's that hard. I just haven't looked up how to do it yet, that's all. Because I don't have to do any for this project. That's been really fun, man, because I think back throughout my gaming career, especially like as a retro gamer, soldering has been this kind of thing that people, I don't know, how do I do that? How do I change a battery in an NES game without learning to point solder? And then there's this convoluted, well, you get some pliers and you peel back the leads and you change out the battery. You got to use duct tape and you just hope that it doesn't snap. These convoluted methods, and as it turns out, point soldering is actually super easy, and not only super easy, but also extremely inexpensive to get the gear to do it. It was $10, and I got a working soldering iron. It's not a, you know, it's not a top quality tool. It's just a little cheap thing, but that's all I need for learning. And the really nice ones aren't that expensive either. It's like $20, and then you can get a really nice kit. So, moving right along, building my little module has been great. It's like almost like a junior electronics kit. My son has a toy that he does called Snap Circuits, and it's basically electrical components and a breadboard. And the electrical components are all installed inside of these plastic cases that have buttons on them, so that you can snap them together like jacket buttons. Yeah, that was a toy that he really dug, like last summer. He would put like a buzzer down on the board, and then he could snap his things together. And then there was also like a power source and some wires and resistors and capacitors and all that stuff. And they're all inside these little cases, so he could snap them together and build things. But he doesn't risk getting shocked or anything like that. But consequently, because he plays with this toy, the Snap Circuits, my son sat down with me and we were like, yeah, okay, so this is the resistor, this is the capacitors, and he like knew all that stuff. He's like, oh yeah, I use a 100K resistor on my buzzer module that I made. It was pretty fascinating. He really knew a lot about it, which was great. We had a great time. So I think after I finish this thing up, Amazon's got a number of these like little electronic kits that you can put together. One that I really want to do for some reason is like an AM/FM radio. That's one. You can get a little AM/FM radio on a PCB with some components, and then that little, if you're old enough to have used an AM/FM radio, you'll remember the antenna, the metal antenna that extends upwards. You have one of those that you fasten on. So I want to do one of those, not just because I would have loved it when I was a kid. I was big into radio as a kid. And then what I'm building up to is something called the Atari Punk console. And we come back to video games. So here's the deal. In the synth community and the amateur electronics, there is a chip inside the Atari, right, that you can use to make, you take the chip and you put it on a circuit board, and you take two knobs, two pots, right, and then put knobs on them. So you have little twisty knobs. and then there's a few resistors and whatnot, and you get what equates to a little buzzer, like a little oscillator, and you can twist the knobs and it changes the sound that you would get from the Atari chip. And this was this was like a schematic that appeared in a magazine like 30 years ago, and people build these to make noise and stuff. So I want to get one of these Atari Punk consoles. Basically a little buzzer, a little sound maker that makes sound with one of the chips from the Atari. You can get one in a kit for $15, right? A little DIY point solder kit. Or you can get one for a Euro rack for much more. So I'm gonna get one set up, and I'm looking forward to it. You get one set up, and then you have like a control voltage jack, and then you could hook the control voltage jack up to a sequencer, or a keyboard, and it essentially becomes like a mini synth. So I think that'd be fun. Just building up my skills like any other skill, which has been good, man. It's been good. I'm kind of shocked it's so easy, having avoided it for so many years, right? You could get, I don't know how much it is. I think it's like $120 or something like that the last time I checked. And you can get like a little rig where you can program 6508 into chips. The chips that they use on NES games, right? So you got to buy the chips because they can only be programmed once. You put them on this rig, and then you flash them with a ROM, and then you can get raw NES circuitry, raw circuit board, and a few components, and solder one of them together, and there you go. You've just built an NES game from scratch. And this is absolutely doable, ladies and gentlemen. Probably wasn't doable, 5 or 10 years ago, but now the components used to make NES games are readily available. And you can do that, man. I believe there's cheaper ways to get the rig that flashes the chips as well. I looked into it at one point. I was interested in building reproduction cards for some reason, but that didn't last long. That's cool. A lot of stuff you can do. So there's that, and there's replacing batteries in old video games that used batteries to save. Another big one was I remember watching people replace the LED in the Sega Genesis. The little LED light up front when you turn it on. That one, along with adding video output jacks to the Sega Genesis as well. So it's neat to open the door to be able to, possibly be able to do some of that stuff in the future. That's been fun. That's been an exciting time. So last night when I sat down and I had all my work done, I didn't fire up a video game. I just cleared my desk and I got out my soldering kit and I started buzzing away. It was great. One thing that's interesting is when I was in plumbing, we did a lot of soldering with acetylene torches, and we would sweat copper pipes together. So that's kind of the vibe I had. I thought it was going to be like soldering with an acetylene torch. And if you've ever soldered with an acetylene torch, there's a lot of flux involved. You got to cover everything in paste, and then there's probably about 100 times more soldering with an acetylene torch. Soldering copper pipes with an acetylene torch. So that's what I thought it was going to be like, and it wasn't like that at all. It was way cleaner and way easier. So that was a pleasant surprise. A pleasant surprise at a time in which I could use pleasant surprises. And can't we all, right? Especially at 6:30 in the morning, driving into the office. On the upside, it's Friday! Friday! Tonight I'm looking forward to finishing my little metal detector module, There's only one part left I have to solder on, and it's this little clamp piece that connects the battery pack, right? There's a little black box that's like external to it that has a couple wires, and that the black box is what you use to put the batteries in. Solder that on, and then it'll be powered up, and we'll see if this thing works. And yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that, but that's going to be all of 5 minutes putting that together. Video game wise, I wouldn't mind returning to Final Fantasy VII. That would be awesome. I haven't played much video games in the evening this past week, so Final Fantasy VII would be good. Maybe a scrimmage or two of Warcraft 3 just to keep it fresh, because I like that game. I'm not ready to let it slip to the background yet. The last thing I did with Warcraft 3 was install a bunch of mods, but I haven't tried them all yet. I just went into a few of them and made sure it worked, just so that I knew how mods were installed. So, little Final Fantasy VII to push my save file a little further, a little Warcraft 3. What else? Last night I played a game called Cloudberry Kingdom. You guys might be familiar with. It's a little side-scrolling game. I played it with my kids. That was fun. Cloudberry Kingdom is a game where you have a randomly generated side-scrolling level, and you can play with 3 people. You can play with 4 people, but I play with both my kids. And basically, the idea is if anyone in the party makes it to the end, then everybody makes it to the end. So that makes it a perfect game to play with my kids. Because my daughters are not great at video games. So she just wants to play with the controller and see something move on TV. So she's got a person that she moves around a little bit. And my son's really hardcore about it. He pushes out to the front of the pack quite often. And we knock out these little procedurally generated levels, and it's good. It's good. Cloudberry Kingdom is a fun game. It's simple, it's stripped down. Some of you guys who grew up with Mario Brothers who probably loaded up and immediately realized there's something missing because everything's procedurally generated, so there's a lack of design, and that does show. But gameplay wise, it's fun. If you have people. I played it with 2 people last night locally, so that it was really good time for that. Yeah, I guess while we're on the subject, that means I played a Steam game local multiplayer with 2 extra people. So that's a very rare opportunity. I got to use my $200 arcade stick while I did it. My Canba Obsidian fight stick on stinking Cloudberry Kingdom, which is hilarious. I think what I really like this weekend is to spot Darabka on so we can play through Knights of the Round, which is the final game left that I have on the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. I even started Knights of the Round in single player. I only made it through the first couple stages. And that's partially just because I haven't had a long video game session since then. That's the nice thing about the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundles. You can save and load anywhere. There's save states. There's not multiple save states, and it's not a one-button save and load. But you can play through a game by doing multiple sittings and do a single playthrough that way, which is absolutely awesome. I don't know that it lets you do that in multiplayer, because Sean and I played Knights of the Round a couple weeks back together, and we made it probably 6 stages in and couldn't finish. I don't know if it would have let us save or not in multiplayer, but whatever. I'm kind of dying to get back in and play that again, which would be great. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This week I've got lined up Final Fantasy VII and Knights of the Round from the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. And I'm thinking about it now and how much time I actually have on the weekend, and that's probably enough to have lined up, to be perfectly honest. So with that, boys and girls, I'm going to send you guys back to the studio where the video games are, where I have everything cleaned up, where my records and tapes are, and my electronics and everything else in the world that I like to play with. I'll see you guys there. Back in the studio. I actually just earlier today was able to order my Eurorack case, a nice Moog Eurorack case. And I cannot wait for that thing to show up. Man, excitement. And it's just a case. It's just a case. I don't have any modules yet, nothing like that. So when it shows up, it's not like I'm going to be, oh yeah, now I can do stuff on my Eurorack case with no modules in it. No, nothing like that. But it marks the beginning of a great journey, a journey that I have planned out. I've been on the chalkboard, drawing my route through the mountains and stuff. I'm going to get this one first. This is how I'm going to go. I'll use this strategy to make sure I can afford it. This is something that I've wanted for quite some time. So off I go. And with that, we're going to do the fail bag, ladies and gentlemen. So we got an email from Hemrock. And Hemrock, I wanted to send you something to say thanks for this email because I saw it come in. And it was really awesome. I love Hemrock's emails. So I apologize that I didn't get that out because I'm a terrible person. But he wrote, let's see what we got here. Give me a second. I'm digging through my email. There it is, the fail bag. And before I read this, if you guys know me personally, by all means, you can send me an email if it's easier. Just make sure that you somehow let me know what I can and cannot read on the air. Like for this, he puts fail bag in the in the comments, and he continues taking a quick jab at me there. I think that's pretty funny. All right, the reason why I say that is because I want to be able to interrupt you as much as I want. You got to understand, I live in a house with 2 children and a third one on the way, and I cannot get a word in this house. One of the reasons I like doing the podcast is because I can finally talk about stuff. So yeah, I like to cut in a little bit on the emails. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to crank the font size up just a little bit so that I can read this really well. All right, greetings and salutations, Critical Failure. Actually, you know what? Let's put it on the middle monitor. Greetings and salutations, Critical Failure. Thank you for another amazing episode, and thank you for responding to my email. Yeah, man. I enjoyed the PS3 discussion. Fittingly, this past weekend, I went back to the store with the cheap PS3 games and was able to pick up Gran Turismo 5, Borderlands 2, and Uncharted 2, all for a grand total of less than $5. Let me tell you, this era is what the late 90s was for NES. I think PS3 prices, for the most part, will only go up from here, especially as we see an end to physical video game content. Yeah, man, I completely agree. There's no way they're going to stay this cheap forever. It's not so much that I think all PS3 games are going to go up, but I think the ones that are worth something, or the ones that are actually like super fun to play, they're all going to find their way into the hands of collectors, and the ones that aren't cared for are going to disappear. For example, I have an extra copy of Grand Theft Auto 3 for the PS2. That's in the games that I'm selling on eBay, just because it's not getting played. I prefer to play it on the PC, and it's, you know, I know people like that game, but that game was produced a lot. There are a lot of copies of Grand Theft Auto 3 floating around out there, but all these ones, like my copy, they're eventually all going to be gone. I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to see what the future holds. This is definitely the time to buy. It's rarely in video game collecting do we see things like this where it's so clearly the time to buy. So clearly the time to buy. Let's see the picks you picked. You picked Uncharted 2, which that's the one that I haven't completed. I did that series so backwards. I started with 3, then I played all the way through 1, and then I played Uncharted 2 for like maybe an hour or 2. And the only reason why I didn't get very far was because I did all of that like inside the span of a week or 2. Yeah. Borderlands 2, cool game. Gran Turismo 5 I never played though. I'm interested to see how that goes down because I actually have a steering wheel that's PS3 compatible. So, you know, I could set it up and do some racing sim action. Let's get back to the email. How's Final Fantasy VII treating you? I've not made much progress since I last wrote. I'm right at the beginning of the acquiring the tiny Bronco airplane from the Rocket Town. This is pretty close to the end of the first disc. I don't know about you, but I often will take long breaks while playing Final Fantasy games. These typically aren't planned, but as you pointed out in the last show, being an adult does not afford me long stretches of free time to really get into an RPG. Quick cut in at the end of that paragraph. I haven't played it since we last talked. I think I talked about that in the Vancast this morning, and that's pretty much where I'm at. Back to the email. Speaking of RPGs, I wanted to answer your question about Lord of the Rings, The Third Age. This is yet another one of the many hidden gems for the PS2. I picked it up on the original Xbox a while ago, and I never sat down to play it until after I listened to the last TCR. Essentially, this game is Final Fantasy meets Lord of the Rings. Now, granted, I didn't have much time to play, but I enjoyed the little I did experience, and I hope I can progress further in the near future. Nevertheless, I watched a few online reviews to get a broader perspective. This is an RPG with a turn-based combat that takes place during the time of the Fellowship of the Ring. You play as Barathor of Gondor in his search for Boromir, who is part of the Fellowship. You also acquire the characters in your party during the journey. Other characters in your party during the journey. This game appears to rely heavily on movie cutscenes narrated by Ian McKellen. But the gameplay is solid, and you're able to customize your characters as you please, since you receive little attribute points every time you level up, which may be freely placed in several categories. As you might imagine, you can also find chests while exploring the environment that grant you extra equipment or items. A nice touch is that you can actually see the new equipment on the character out in and outside of battle. I'm actually a little surprised that this was not very popular at the time, because it seems like a brilliant game despite its rather linear story. With that said, my challenge to you is to give it a go this week, even if it's only for a half an hour. I think you might like it. Let me know your thoughts. Challenge accepted, my friend. And there's more to this email, but I'm just taking a quick break so I can take note of that. I need to write this down in my ledger. Hemrock's challenge. Play Lord of the Rings Third Age. I actually have that for sale on eBay right now, so I have to do that very soon. Nobody's bid on it yet, so you never know. Okay, let's get back to the email. On the previous episode, you gave a brief nod towards the Tiger Claw TV Awards show. Yeah, those were great, and I wish I would have watched Justin Urita's videos before Digital Decay kicked in. Quick break from the email. His name was actually Jason Urita. There's a screenshot of him in the video he appeared in. I don't know what happened to the rest of his videos. I guess it was early YouTube days. He was just like, yeah, you know what? I'm okay with bringing these down. He also looked like he was young and in college. And you know, some people pulled down like their YouTube videos for professional reasons, because this was like the beginning of the age of all that stuff being exposed to employers and stuff. But anyway, back to the email. For instance, how much longer will Warcraft 3... Oh, I think I skipped a little bit. Speaking of digital decay, I wonder how often we lose mod-related content to old video games. For instance, how much longer will the Warcraft 3 maps be readily available? Especially the less popular ones. I've thought about backing up several scenarios for Civilization 2 before they get lost in time. Have you ever went out of your way to digitally store a free game DLC? Alright, a few things about this. To answer your question directly, absolutely, yes, I have. There's a game called ZZT, which was an MS-DOS based game, little shooter, ASCII graphics, top-down shooter. It was the first game that Tim Sweeney made. It was the flagship game that started Epic Mega Games, and it had a level maker for it. Now, there used to be a thriving community around ZZT. People would make all sorts of games. They'd make little shooter games. They'd make magazine games where you played, and there was just like basically like a little kind of museum type thing. And as you went through the museum, there was like art and articles and stuff. It was really incredible what people did with it. And I saved, I made a CD-ROM of some of the great ZZT levels. Now, in 2019, the site that I got them from, entitled Z2, that site is still around, so you can still get all that stuff. But I didn't, you never know. I thought I was going to go, so I saved a bunch of that stuff. Absolutely, I did. To answer your question about Warcraft 3, Swingle, I know you're out there. Please respond to this as well, but here's the little bit I know. Warcraft 3 mods are very, very small, and that sets them apart from other games' mods. So, just like with ZZT, the Cultural Hub websites, because I believe there's 2 of them, have been up for long periods of time. That's one thing that sets Warcraft 3 apart. And mind you, I'm new to all this. Alex Swingle just laid all this out for me just recently. But the sites that you can go to now, and Swingle, I wish I could remember what they were called. I just have them bookmarked. But actually, do I? I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to get sliding off track. But the same sites now are more or less the same sites that were then, for the most part. So that doesn't mean we haven't lost maps. You never know. Somebody might have had a GeoCities site up with a couple of their own maps on their own site, and it just went down. You never really know. But with Warcraft 3, it seems like most of the old school stuff we still have. As for Civilization 2, I think that's a different story, because Civilization, and I've looked for websites related to the older Civ stuff, It's all on Civ Fanatics, and that's based around a message forum system. So most of people's mods are like rapid share links and things like that. So they will decay much faster than a Warcraft 3 map. So absolutely get those Civ 2 mods installed and get them saved on a CD-ROM or something somewhere. What might be fun is to make a CD-ROM of Civ 2 mods and design like a cover for it. You know how like there used to be those third-party expansion packs for some PC games back in the days, like Qzone. I have it up on my shelf, little Quake maps and a little mod, different gun kind of thing. But it had nothing to do with the people who actually made Quake. Produce one of those, but only one copy and only for yourself. Actually, now that we're on the subject, I've been thinking about ways to like manufacture like a big box PC game, but print and manufacture an original big box and only one copy for myself. I'm still working out how that's done, but there's got to be a printing company who can do it. I don't know. I think that might be fun. Let's get back to the email. Do you have any Warcraft 3 maps you'd recommend? Did you get into the original Dota on Warcraft 3? All right. Do I have the file open? No, I don't. I did download the original Dota. I didn't get into it per se. The only Warcraft 3 mod that I've tried is called Battle Tanks, and that came as a recommendation from Alex Swingle. Start with Battle Tanks. Very complicated though. Where I'm at with Warcraft 3, I prefer straight up scrimmage. Plain old Warcraft 3 rules. Just look for maps. Just get a custom map. And I don't think I have one, because there's so many pack-in vanilla maps. I usually just play on the vanilla maps at this point. Yeah, I'm actually asking you the same question. Do you have any maps for Warcraft 3 you can recommend? I want to tell you to try and find a copy of that game so we can play it, Hemrock, but I don't even know how you would do that anymore. You can't buy it off of Blizzard. Because they're pushing their remastered version, which isn't even out yet. You got to find a CD copy where the key is still intact. All right, let's get back to the email. He continues. Do you prefer GOG or Steam? I think I may be in the minority here, but I prefer GOG. I like the fact that they can back up copies of my games, and I put them on any PC I choose. As mentioned in a previous email, I can no longer put new Steam games on my Windows XP machine. With that said, Steam obviously has more content. Just curious, your thoughts. I'm interested, Hemrock, in tracking information. I want a usage report. I want a usage report, and I want to be where the people are. That's the two things GOG needs. I love it that GOG. Two things I love about GOG. One, they have the DRM free stuff, so you can back it all up. But it's and two, they also have the cool client, but it's optional. It's so cool. They need better statistics on the games, and they need better they need better community tools. I should be able to launch one of my GOG games external to the GOG client and have it count my time if I want to. Like, for example, if I make a shortcut for a Steam game on the desktop, I can launch it from anywhere, but it's going to count the time in Steam. I should be able to make a Galaxy-linked shortcut to do the same thing. That's something. I like GOG. I like GOG, and GOG Galaxy was a huge step forward. But I'm in the Steam boat right now, and I kind of know that I'm taking steps to move on from Steam as well. Like, I started looking through actually giving some of my CD games a try, and that's how I got hooked on Warcraft 3, right? So I'm taking steps, but Steam's still my favorite. I know you got to diversify, though. I know one can't rule them all, so I'm gonna try and just go where if there's a good game, just go where the good game is. We'll see. All right, let's get back to the email. He says, well, I better get going. I need to tend to a toddler who's refusing to sleep. Keep rolling retro, Hemrock. P.S. Hope all is well with your wife and the upcoming baby. Thanks, man. Yep, new baby is due late September. and we're at the beginning of August right now, so a month and a half, month and 3 weeks maybe, and then the baby will be here. I don't know what's going to happen to TCR during that time, but I guarantee TCR is going to be around. I guarantee it. I absolutely promise it. I can't promise that I'm going to be uploading it early. I can't promise it's going to be long, but if all else fails, if nothing else happens, then I'm going to make a little thing on Monday morning, and I'm going to put it out, and TCR is absolutely going to continue. So don't you worry about that. Thanks for writing in, man. It's so cool to read you. Those emails are... That's like Hemrock co-hosted the second half of the show when I get an email like that. It's very cool. Now, the most favorited way to reach out is using YouTube, the YouTube comments. Of course, you leave a comment, and I'm able to find it. So when I'm, all right, you're gonna give me a second here. I'm going back to the YouTube studio where they buried the comments. Now I got to read them from the back end because I know some people have issues with leaving comments, and YouTube just decides to not show them for whatever reason. And hey, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Nothing I can do about that. Comments. It's loading right now. All right. Sorby leaves a comment on the Top Keck remix video. This is hilarious. Oh, and this isn't showing up. Hold on. Action menu. Can I stick it? I'll put a heart on it. Sorby writes, "What the heck have I stumbled upon?" Yes, indeed. Alrighty, last week. Phone's going off. Give me a second. It's business time. Alright, I gotta stop the recording for just a bit. Bear with me. Alright, we're good. We're back on the air. We got a comment from Alex Swingo last week. And he writes, "Number one, important to note, I also question..." Oh my gosh. Hold on a second. "Important to note, I also questioned your manhood and said mean things about your intelligence. Very important to note how rude I was at the time you initially naysayed Warcraft 3. It is a baby of mine, but still, it is Warcraft 3. I would almost kick you straight into whatever coin purse your woman calls the sack if you didn't try certain games like FF7 or Super Mario Bros. Despite me poo-pooing on them, they're classics that should have a few minutes put into them. Same goes with Warcraft 3. I'm glad you fished it out of the donation pile. I also pushed you two to play Knights of the Round. There was talk of Captain Commando, but the man with fine taste was able to convince you guys to make the right choice." Number two, 1 hour 13 minutes in. Are you giving the benefit of the doubt that you have bad taste in games? I concur with that sentiment. Clock Tower 3 is god-awful in comparison to the previous games. Can you believe that Capcom expected 500,000 sales from that turd? Some good thoughts for you to know are that the bulk of good games to the PS2 were translated to English, and there were very few expensive PS2 games worth getting. There are some Japan-exclusive mecha games that are worth your time, but I've seen most of the exclusive, and they aren't mandatory to experience. For example, I'm almost 30 now, and I've only bought plus played the good games for the PS2. Excuse me, I read that all wrong. Alex, I know you're laughing hard. I read that all wrong. We're going to back up just a little bit, and we're going to try that again. For example, I'm almost 30 now, and if I only bought and played the good games for the PS2, I'd be 40 by the time I completed every game under $20. Hell, I spent roughly 6 years playing through 40 PS2 games, and I barely scratched the surface. This is under the guideline of 2 to 3 hours a night for playtime. Very, very interesting comment here. Yeah. And we're gonna move on without commenting on any of it. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Where do we start? We got some. I want to talk about Knights of the Round because that was your baby. Knights of the Round is not the best game in that collection. You are absolutely wrong on that one, sir. You have refined taste. You are a gentleman with a cultured gentleman. For sure, but you are incorrect. That is the best game on the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. And I am looking for my tier list so I can tell you exactly what the best game is. There it is, Beat 'em Ups Guide. Best game is called Armored Warriors, son. I know it's not the name of the Japanese version, but if you've never played Armored Warriors, that's worth getting the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle for. Whew. Giant mechs. Beating up people in giant mechs. And you get there's while you're in the giant mechs, there's actual people who are just walking around and you can step on them and they go squish. Now that's an awesome game. That is an awesome game in my tier list. But the second game on the tier list is Knights of the Round. Very good game. Let's get back to the comments. Let's see what else we got. I talked about the PS2. Yeah, the PS2 having... Here's the thing about the PS2. I kind of wish that I could play Japanese games for it, but I don't think there's any super expensive grails that I'm interested in either. I know the 2D fighting games get a little pricey, and there's a few that are pretty big money. But I'd rather play those on a PS3 anyway, or where I have a nice arcade stick. Just to be perfectly honest. PS2's got some pachinko that I'm missing out on just because it's so hard to get a rig that'll play international games, and it's got that whole region lock nonsense. But yeah, locally, domestically, PS2, oh, you'll never run out of PS2 games. It's not gonna happen. All right, Gaming Beast 82 writes, yeah, I've been kind of AFK since I've been no-lifing Fallout 4 recently. Let's get that final achievement and play through all of the Capcom bundle. I played all these games on MAME back in the day, and I'm happy to say they've added Battle Circuit and Armored Warriors to the list, since these have never had a home release until now. Quick break from the comment here. Battle Circuit is number 3. That is a great game. Battle Circuit is fantastic. I enjoyed that very much. In fact, if we beat Knights of the Round and wanted to move on to a second game, I think I might be down for some Battle Circuit. Back to the comment. I might have a potential third player. I think you can set a limited amount of lives in the game to set a challenge, or you can just limit yourself to set a number of credits. Final Fight was originally going to be called Street Fighter 95, and it was firmly set in the same universe, even back then. In Final Fight 2, you could travel to the world, where you travel the world to see Chun-Li can be seen in the background eating some rice in the China level. She seems to be busy and doesn't think Hager and company needed help. It's interesting to see that the three games from the first... that 3 of the first game's bosses, even standard mooks like Andor Jr., made it into the Capcom fighting games. But I think the other heroes from FF2 and 3, like my favorite Carlos the Brazilian Ninja, didn't make it. And only have some background cameos, sadly. I'll be catching up on your and Death Adder's episodes. Thanks for making them, broski. P.S. Modern movies do suck, mostly these days. Sadly, either buy a Blu-ray or a DVD of an old movie, or a decent game on Steam/GOG instead of a movie ticket. Lol. That last movie I saw in the movie theater was Shazam. You may enjoy it. I'm going to start watching The Boys soon. Once I did, we can chat about it, maybe even record about it. See you later, broski. Sean and I would absolutely be on a Beastcast about The Boys. I've enjoyed The Boys very much. Haven't quite finished it yet, but I'm pretty close. Oop, hang on. My earphones have this little quirk where I kind of shift my weight to the left side, and then I lean on the cable, and it presses down a volume down button, and then it just kills the volume without me realizing it. All right, Death Adder writes at 49 minutes, are you on the Bithead 1000 diet meal plan? No, I'm on Weight Watchers, but it seems to be working. Stay within 27 points in a week, and I run at the very least 2 miles on Saturday. Most of the time I get out several times in the middle of the week. But yeah, I run a couple times a week and control what I eat, and it seems to work. He writes, wait, you saw Stuber starring Dave Bautista in the theaters? I thought you were straight edge. Let me just say, okay, I like Kumail Nanjiani. He's a funny guy, but he's super, one of these real hardcore liberal types, which is fine, but he kind of you can. There's a couple of like real anti-white parts of the movie, which are, I mean, it kind of detracts from the humor a little bit for me. And at the end, they made Dave Bautista cry, which is the part I really like. Was kind of like, oh, really, dude? But there were some funny moments too. So I don't know. It was kind of dumb. It was $6, and we like got like a really good deal, and it was still $6. So I don't know. I probably won't be back in the movie theaters for quite a while. We'll see. Actually, that's not true because my wife wants to see the new Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I think we're gonna go out to see that, and then that'll be the last time I'm in the movie theaters for quite some time. Death Adder writes, since I liked the last console generation way more, and I primarily gamed on the PS3 back then, the PS3 is my waifu. I loved that thick beast. Something to keep to keep in mind if you get into PS3 collecting, the PS3 does not actually grill hamburgers like a George Foreman grill. I cannot stress that enough. All right, that gets a heart and a thumbs up, my man. Death Adder, man, it's always good to hear from you. Thanks for leaving comments and listening to the show. Desm101 writes, I bought my coworker's PS3 a couple of years ago at a fair price. I love collecting for it, but it has one of the biggest backlogs for all of my systems because I never seem to get around to playing it much. I took that Activision 2600 collection from the retro junk box, and I put the Sonic collection back in its place. And you know what, Desm, real quick, a break from the email, I got the Sonic collection, and it's awesome. So it worked out okay. Back to the comment. Flip Nick on PS2 is pretty good, but some of the levels are frustrating. I keep feeling like the controls lag a tiny bit, making it harder to complete the technical spots. I've been leaving in the comments on the last couple of episodes of Tiger Claw Radio, but I'm not sure if they're showing up on the regular comments or getting marked as spam. Yeah, you know what, Desm? I don't know either, but I'm looking on the back end, so I'm if they're getting sent at all, I'm seeing them. I look on the back end specifically for that reason. Like right now, it says held for review 0, likely spam 0. So there's no comments for me that I'm that are waiting. Hemrock writes, what did you think of the Activision collection? And I'm curious about that as well because I kind of want to get that game. My father-in-law has a copy of that game in on his bookshelf, and I see it. I'm like, you don't play PS2, do you? He's like, no, I don't. But I'm not trying to take his stuff. Desm101 writes, Hemrock, I love it. Awesome selection of games, cool interface. Takes me back to when I had a 2600 as a kid. Desm, you had a 2600 as a kid. I wish I had a 2600 as a kid. Started with the NES. And the NES was a great system for its time. But I even like when I was a teenager, I got a hold of it in television when I was probably like 17 or 16 maybe. 16 probably. 15 and 16 probably sounds about right. I got a hold of it in television, and even at that age, I was like, this is a lot of fun. And it was dope. So, yeah, I do kind of wish I lived at a time when Atari games were being put out new. But, you know, I guess you could argue that's still happening today. Let's read on. Itsby leaves a comment on the cassette tapes DIY video. He says, great walk through the tapes. Anyone putting together a DIY tape should watch this video to avoid rookie mistakes. Thank you so much, because the videos about cassette tapes and stuff, they're so far outside of my normal wheelhouse that sometimes I feel like nobody's watching. Light Studios puts on episode 293, he says, first drawn fan art, I made you a collage on a picture of a TV about 9 years ago. You used it as your wallpaper. Of course, they say edits don't count. I had forgotten about that, actually, Sendu. You get a heart and a thumbs up. You get both. Painted Blonde. Painted Blonde leaves a comment on the cassette and vinyl pickups video, which is so cool because I buy tapes from this guy. He says, great stuff, man. Bummer about the bubble-wrapped Coltrane album. I guess you could say it adds a little character. He's talking about John Coltrane album. I opened it up on camera, and it had a little bending in the corner. Well, you know what? After I actually got around to playing that record, it wasn't just that bent on the corner of the thing because it was in a bubble mailer. The whole record was warped. It was warped so badly that you couldn't play the first side. The needle would jump all the way to the middle of the record if you tried to play it like on that first side. It was warped beyond belief. So I actually returned it. And yeah, this is the second time I've had, well, the third time I've had to return a vinyl record to Amazon. So now I'm trying to find, I'm in the market for a different way to get vinyl. So right now, I think the only way I'm willing to buy vinyl is if it's from like, if I'm buying it directly from the artist on Bandcamp. It's the only way. And it's not cheap either. Those records are expensive. They're expensive and one of a kind. Anything happens to that record, you're not getting another one. I'll get vinyl there, and I'll get vinyl on the showroom floor at MagFest, because I got a number of records last year that I just did. They're great records. Unbelievable records at MagFest. Kaiser Cade writes, I've only ordered one record from Amazon. That's Dead Mouse 4x4 equals 12. And they sent it in a box that had no support. I was amazed that it wasn't damaged, as it was just flying around inside the box like crazy. This is back in 2010, 2011-ish. It's nice to see that Amazon has not changed one bit. You know, that's the funny thing, Kaiser. I wanted to make a video about this, but I never got around to it. I actually ordered a lot of records off of Amazon, and normally they did okay. It's just, you know, they're kind of screwing up one too many times now. I've ordered a lot of records from Amazon. That's like my main dealer of vinyl, for sure. Gaming Beast writes, I recently tried to play through one of the King of Fighters games. I could get through a few bouts, but it got too hard for me, honestly. Yeah, it does get very hard. It gets hard, but it's good. I think King of Fighters, if you're coming to... A couple things about King of Fighters. If you're coming to that series as an outsider, play singles, because the characters are complicated. And if you play singles, that'll give you a chance to, like, kind of get the hang of it. It's kind of tough to go into, like, a three-man team when you don't really know anybody who's anybody. So the Steam games are modified a little bit in that they have a singles mode, right? If you go get it on MAME, there's no singles mode. And if you play it on the Wii, there's no singles mode. But Steam has it. So I like to play 2002 with singles. That's a good place to go. And there's no shame in dropping the difficulty. Not in King of Fighters, because that is a tough game. Yeah, I remember Street Fighter V being like the opposite. When I played it in single player, if I dropped the difficulty down too far, then it wasn't anything. But King of Fighters, even on the lowest difficulty, the boss of the game is just so difficult. All right, now that's the end of the comments from last week, but Alex Swingle let me know that he left one for the previous week, and I just didn't read it. Yeah, here it is. This is from last week. 294, he writes, Number 1, to clarify, I only mentioned Resident Evil 4 as not counting because it was a simultaneous release for the PS2 as well as being made for the GameCube. If we counted every compilation game, every downloadable title, etc., then the Wii's ROM store beats every system of all time. Yeah, you got me there. And that's why I wanted to make the distinction about games that were made for the new system, even if it was a multi-release. Often the Xbox edition of a game looked better than the PS2. But the PS2 version was better overall due to not frying your console after 3 hours of play. And you know what? You're absolutely right. I mean, what am I going to say? You're right. When you're right, you're right. And where are we at? How are we doing, boys and girls? We're an hour and 13 minutes in. Jeez Louise. What a week it's been. I don't have time to roll the closer. So this is going to be it. So as we march on into our work weeks, our school weeks, or whatever it is you have to do from Monday to Friday, I hope it goes well for you. I really do. Keep getting up in the morning, and whatever happens, don't let them get you down. Don't let them defeat you, because as long as you're out of bed and going to do what you got to do, then they haven't got you yet. And no truer words have ever been spoken. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I'll see you guys next week.